I'm Lisa Sheffield-Guy. I'm a project manager at Arcus and a co-lead for the technology innovation and application team, along with Jonathan Blythe and Mark Seafelt. And I'm also the manager of a program called the Sea Eyes for Walrus Outlook, and I will drop a link to that program in the chat really quick. Because about a year ago, I had two separate observers in this program talk about problems they were having with their underground meat cellars. And Kenji, our first speaker, will do a good job of leading you through what those are and how they work. So I'll save that for him. But these problems had to do with flooding and thawing of these cellars. And so I started talking to observers and other community members about this problem and doing a bit of research and realizing that I was in a bit of a unique position being a co-lead of the technology team and learning about some of the technology that's been used to keep these cellars frozen, and also working with communities. So I've been working with a couple of the Sea Eyes for Walrus Outlook contributors, Aqef Waghiyi and Odge Ahkinga, who will hopefully be joining us soon to share some of their stories. And so today, that's what the goal is, just to bring the observers, Cellar users, permafrost scientists, and technology developers together to kind of brainstorm some solutions and help communities find resources to deal with this food security threat. So with that, I will just go ahead and introduce our first speaker, Kenji Yoshikawa at UAF, who's been researching this topic for quite a while. And his presentation is History and Recent Changes of the Cellar Cache in the Arctic. And Meredith, we can stop screen sharing this slide, and we'll come back to this after Kenji's presentation. And Kenji, you're going to have to tell us about this tunnel man nickname, please, that I just learned about in the chat.
No, just I think I cannot share. Can we share this? Oh wait, huh?
I think Meredith has your slides if you need her to share them for you.
Oh, that just still somebody sharing this, or you don't see, right?
Not yet. I'm happy to share them if you need me to.
Oh yeah, I found it. I found it. Yeah. So do you see now?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. That looks good.
Yeah, it's coming. Okay. Sorry. So my name is Kenji Yoshikawa. I'm a professor, retired professor in the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Yeah, I'm talking about something about the Cellar today, about the history and what I see the each communities. Before going to further discussion, I want to make sure that I have a kind of little mistake I did in the 30 years ago. We have our biggest mentor, Jerry Brown, asked me to how we should translate Sigurwak at the barrow, at that time, Sigurwak to English. Then we come up meat cellar or ice cellar. Then I don't thinking about deep enough consideration. Like I'm thinking about the snow machine and the snowmobile. Alaska, we call snow machine for snowmobile. I have a similar idea, just to say ice cellar, just simply. That kind of, I think, a mistake. I still believe that I should change the name for the future. Then new permafrost terminology dictionary published the next year for we changed the already not name in ice cellar. We all call it just cellar. Because cellar, like wine cellar or loose cellar, everything is just simply for the object in there to the name came from. Then that means the ice cellar feel like ice storage. Then it is in Yakutia, people storage ice in the cellar. So that's exactly ice cellar. Then most of the Alaskan cellar is not ice cellar. So that's, I think we should correction the name. That's my feeling, number one. Then when you look at all the publication or stuff, all the name, many names come kind of mixed up. Then I think today I simply say cellar. That may be more simple. Then if I say the ice cellar, meaning particularly purpose is storage in the ice. If the meat cellar, meaning meat inside, something like that. Then of course, maybe more respect for the local language, because like Sigurak for Inupiaq, then Sigurgak in the Central Lawrence Island Yupik, or the Bruce for Saha. So maybe this word is more accurate, but I'm talking about more entire Arctic today than just say cellar. So then before we talking in detail, I think today's a little different presentation method I use. First I talk about the result, then I try to explain about why this result reached up. So then number one, the cellars on permafrost may not be long history, maybe just 100 years or so. Then what? Then there is a cellar underground before, but most of the cellar is in the active layer, not in the permafrost. That's I think about that. Then next, there is what we need for cellar is only 3 months of the summer. Try to not spoil the food. That's the main purpose to using the long time ago. So then another one is a big shifting about cellar is during Cold War. We have a lot of equipment, a lot of people, then political issues, then cellar going to deeper and larger. That's big changing. Then also at the same time, electricity is available in town and after 60s. That's big changing in the Arctic communities. Then of course, that's cellar need a lot of care and cleaning. That's another biggest issue about today's community, because cellar need to be the clean up everything in the spring for the new harvest meat and fish put into the cellar for the storage in the summertime. So that's a kind of big problem too. I see that most of the cellar is not really using, because you cannot do this for the every year if a human is not available. So then also, of course, natives are using a long history about using food for how to survive for the summertime. Is most likely using the dry like jerky. If the lean meat, they do this for the dry. Then of course, they doing the aging and fermentation. Then sometimes freezing, not really the most of the time. That's I figure out. Then also the purpose of the cellar is not for the storage for spoiled. Sometimes important for the animal attack or prevention of the flooding. That's another issue. So they end up to the history of the cellar when we look at the very close attached with the climatic change or political change or any environmental change that's strongly related for the how to design for usage. That's what I'm talking about today. So then at the beginning, I talk about the very rough calendar, how to use cellar. Then just to first line the northern Alaska to the northwest Alaska to Bering Strait to the Chukotka, Russia. You can see that most importantly, I want to say that almost all the cellar, they have to clean up springtime before biggest harvest come in. So that's first step to the difficulty to people keep cellar good shape. Then once the cellar is cleaned up, then harvest, put in the cellar in the spring, then summertime, try to keep the good shape for edible. So then, of course, northern Alaska, people keep frozen for the if cellar is in the permafrost. But most of the Bering Strait or southern boundary of permafrost area, they don't have enough temperature, then they put in the fermentation. That's typically I see today. Then how long they using Cellar? Then after Christianity spread in the native communities, typically at least people using until Christmas time for the using harvest meat until Christmas party. That we see today. So then let's talk about the history of the Cellar. So at the beginning, what's the oldest cellar we found? Is we found at the Gamble, Central Lawrence Island. Then vertical cellar is the carbon dating of the Mactac for the oil bubbler is about 1,000 years BP. But of course, marine mammals are affected for the seawater, carbon to exchange. Then maybe a little more younger real age is. Then maybe something 800 to 600, but sure about the before Little Ice Age. So Little Ice Age is a little cold time about 500 years ago to 100 years ago. So at that means we have or native have a cellar at least before Little Ice Age. That's sure. That we found it for the history. Then another last 100 years, 150 years, we look at the cellar. The Central Lawrence Island and Point Hope, they have a sod house type cellar. The people live in the sod house at that time. Then cellar is next of this for the storage for the food. But that's very much shallow and above ground sometimes. For that means not really the frozen, not permafrost related. Then of course in the ice house is people using the long time, the 1800 for the even in the Europe or the east coast of the United States. So that kind of design still exists in the Siberia and like St. Paul Island, but that's another story. So then also the early days, how they spread the same design of the ice cellar, same design of cellar, but actually ice cellar because mainly for the Yakutia was the eastern Siberia. They are open pit cellar, first digging for the big hole, then put in the wood, like making the wood log house inside the ground. That's something like that design. They made it. Then that's same design spread by the maybe trader and whaler for the all of the Siberian coastline, including about the Herschel Island. That was a lot of whaler stay overnight, over winter for the stuck in the Mackenzie Delta. So, but interestingly, this technique and design never connect with Alaskan or Canadian natives. But this why so spread for the most of the Siberian cellar? Because I think exile to the Siberia has a very strong impact. First, I think decouplist 1825. They are very smart and young people sent to Siberia. Then they kind of invented a way of the cooling for the cellar. That's what I will talking about later. Then also after another exile coming, continued to the until revolution, they spread all over the Siberian communities. That's what we see today. Then also another very important for the Alaskan side, Sheldon Jackson is one of the key person because he bring in the reindeer herding system because native has a starving. So then, for example, like Savoonga, Central Lawrence Island, that doesn't exist a village before. Then after reindeer station, they start making a new villages. Then we had storage for reindeer carcass in the underground. So that's developed about the cellar more bigger. Then also bigger commercial-based reindeer station developed by using the big cellar. That's big changing about by the Sheldon Jackson's idea. They also Sheldon Jackson recommend for the deeper storage is better for food. Then using missionary to using all the village try to make deeper for cellar. That's their decision made by Sheldon Jackson because he's idea came from the first IPY's Ray expedition at Barrow 1882 to 83. They drill down 11-meter shaft for then measure temperature is very cold. Even he put in the bird for the storage. Then after that, Charles Brower come into Barrow 1886. Then he followed the Ray expedition's cellar for the keeping food. That spread a lot for the native communities, and also Sheridan Jackson understand to using other villages the same way. So this is a Gamble site, and you can see the left side has that 1,000 maybe before Little Ice Age Mactac. We found it, but again, this is lucky to remain for the frozen ground. But permafrost is very shallow in the Gamble, but flooding, the storm surge makes a new sediment come up to the covered about 2 meters of the gravel sand, then makes the this old Mactac buried in the permafrost. There we found it, but again, this is very shallow cellar in Gamble. So then again, the very roughly, this is a very 19th century typical cellar in Siberia. The left, the vertical open pit, like put in the log cabin, log house inside the ground type of things. Then idea spread by the exile. Then right side as a vertical shaft that's typically using for the Alaskan natives. But again, most of the time, active layer is 2 meter, 3 meter deep in the southern part. Then Cellar is in the active layer. Maybe Barrow has a shallow active layer. Then this is frozen. Then after the late 18th centuries, they are more easy to in and out, especially ice cellar. People want to use ice for the daily basis for the drinking water. They don't want to go down, up and down many times. And this is more easy to take care of this. Then that's happening for the Siberian side, then including for the Herschel Island. Then another type is point hop, the old point hop, Tigigak, old days. Then 1970s, they moved to the new site, today's point hop, there because very typically flooding for the storm surge is common in this area. So that means the Cellar is also, if you dig ground, of course, every time go to the flooding. So then put in the above ground. That's typically they keep the food for the safe from the flooding. So this is very too complicated. I don't want to explain everything, but if you want to keep the food, how you want to keep the food stays a good shape. So then, of course, very long time ago, natural conditions, you can see the lower left, the green color. So that's like people maybe put in the snowbank or caves or cracks. Then typically, very good example, the King Island. They do the King Island has a big cave behind the village. They put in the snowbank to hide all the whale and the walrus at that time. But of course, King Island doesn't exist anymore for the village. Then they don't use anymore. Then another thing is the right side of the yellow and the pink color, like buried or semi-buried. If a summer camp or something in the middle of hunting time or unexpected fish you can catch like herring, they temporarily dig ground and buried it. So keep the eat later. That's we do this many places. Then today, typically Shishimaref in Alaska, they still doing for the digging ground. They put in the meat, then dig up for the Christmas time. That kind of stuff they do this today, because Shishimaref is a part of the summer camp originally. So then I want to say that very earlier showing the cartoon is early arrow for the open pit operation. That's very typically happen for Siberia and Alaska and Canada, early time before World War II. Then after World War II, later I will show you more tunnel method. We go dig ground, then go to tunnel, like Barrow today, or like most of the Siberian new cellar is big tunnel operation, that kind of like orange line, that's kind of popular in the after 1950s. Again, just a little bit showing about, you can see the left side has a Lenik, in the engineering textbook in Moscow published in 1881. So that means even the Cellar's designs in the engineering textbook in the 19th century in Russia. So that then this is a very smart way. So you can see the right side. They put the ventilation for different dips. Then warmer air escape from higher ceiling. Then cold air come into the lower ventilation, makes a convection inside the cellar. That's in the 19th way. Then also, if we don't have a ventilation in Siberia, they typically open the lid on the winter time. Then makes natural convection. So that's very typically doing in the Siberian side. That's a big difference for the Alaska and the Canada. So then instead that this is one of the report for the 1887 for the Punak Island, the next of the Central Lawrence Island. That means, so I believe these people, the Central Lawrence Island Yupiks, they live in the sod house at that time, the 19th century. Then you can see the meat cache, the right side. So that you can see the meat is storage in the active layer, just a mound, like very similar like point hope. So that they don't using permafrost, they didn't dig deeper. That you can see it. Then this is Wales, Alaska. Today's they don't use it anymore, but still I can see the shallow active layer vertical shaft they used to using for the food storage. So again, this Wales is used to have a biggest whaling community. But they even don't have a deep. They just dig a little shallow active layer. That's very much the all these food cellars as a model. Then when you look at the other islands between the Alaska and Russia, the left side is St. Paul Island, Pribiorov Island. This is concrete made, kind of new, but the design itself was very much same like all days ice house in east coast of the United States. They're using this that because Aleutians are very early age to related for the Western culture. So then middle picture is Central Lawrence Island Gambel's ice cellar. That's again typically active layer ice cellar, about 1.5 to 2 meter deep, but the permafrost start about 2 to 2.5 meter. So then the food is very much not frozen, with just partial conditions like refrigeration conditions. The right side, this is a Little Diomede cellar. That's one of the biggest cellar in the Little Diomede, and whale captain using a deeper and bigger. But again, this is not permafrost. It's very rocky. Then permafrost is much deeper in the Little Diomede. Then people keep it in the food. Again, the past 3 months of the summer. Then they used to in early 20th centuries, whale captain put in all the everybody's meat in here with name on. Then 3 months keep this everybody together. Then after first snow in September, they pick their own meat, then bring back own small cellar at each house. That they did at that time. So that's the thing is that when you look at the cellar, population and the demand is kind of important key factor. And this is one of the Norm Daily Nugget newspapers report. So 1914, one of the native Alaskan teacher come to the Little Diomede school. So the school is already open at that time. Then in the Soviet, Russian side of the Big Diomede, they don't have a school. Then many people want to move to the Little Diomede. They end up to the like 1917, that after the Soviet Revolution, only one family, 12 people remained the big Diomede. Rest of all of the big Diomede people moved to little Diomede. So that means you need to have a bigger cellar. Then they make a big, but still, you know, big Diomede, little Diomedes are not the can make a big cellar, then, but relatively bigger cellar made by the rocks. There was again no permafrost, just a shallower. So then 1920s, this is the first time the human invented a cooling system. Then they selling it very expensive, not for everybody, but a big company can set up. They made up to the ammonia-based electric freezing system. Combined with permafrost ground cellar, they made a big storage place for the reindeer carcass. So then after World War II, again, the cellar going to larger and bigger. That's a big difference. Then also Cold War makes more northern community active by the military related or relocation and the new settlement. But the population is increasing dramatically. That makes a lot of changing about the cellar conditions. Then of course, 1960s, electricity is in town. Everybody can have a freezer, electric freezer. So this is a 1957 made the Moscow Metro Company dig down for the cellar in Chukotka, the town named Lorino. So this is a very interesting thing that about that time, the Nikita Khrushchev, he's a very strong connection with Moscow, city of Moscow, since 1930s. So then they made a huge cellar with rail. So that's then Loreno's Kolkhoz people take care of this community cellar. But at that time, Soviet can have a person to take care of the cellar for that only that purpose. So that's why they can clean and good shape always better for the by the Kolkhoz or Sovkhoz. But after Soviet collapse, very difficult to handle this. Then most of the cellar is now don't use it because it can't take care of this. Then at least this time, Lorino, they're using this cellar for the food for the gray whale and of course bowhead or walrus, all kind of meat, because one of the biggest Arctic fox farm on the above ground. So the fox need a lot of food for feed. So that means they have a big business going on at that time. So then in the Western world, we have like Fairbanks made a Fox Tunnel, the Kurel made, US Army made a Fox Tunnel in 1963. At the same time, in the Taktoyaktak in Canada, made another ice cellar in the underground. Around that time, is people making a lot of cellar, sometimes military purpose, sometimes more equipment available. Then, of course, 1960s, most of the village has electricity, meaning power pole. They need to dig ground, make a telephone power post. The equipment comes to the town. That's a good time to dig ground for the same equipment. So then this is one of the biggest, the deepest ones, 9 meters deep. But one of the interesting point is under the ground has a 19 different room, about 3 meter by 3 meter size. So then each family can use their own space to use, not to share the space. So that's kind of important for the point of the cellar. I can talk about a little more later. So
hey,
then
Kenji,
look at the temperature of the.
Kenji, this is Lisa. I'm gonna jump in really quick just to say we're getting a bit over time, and I know you still have quite a few slides left.
Shoot,
and I want,
sorry.
And I know that Aqef is on, and he's taking a little time away from work today, and we'll need to get back. Do you think you could spend maybe 5 more minutes, and then we'll have Aqef come on, and then we can come back to this? I just want to make sure he has time to talk before.
No, okay, I try to finish 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry for the interruption.
Sorry. So then just, okay, temperature, look at that. Then just, deeper the cellar is, temperature is more stable because annual amplitude is lower, like black lines in Canada, Canada one. Then also the open cellar, when the winter time, cellar open or close, a big difference about the cellar temperature. So when the open the lid in the winter time, it's much more effective. This is a experiment for the temperature. Then you can see that about 2 degrees summertimes colder when we open the lid in the cellar. So then recent, we have a lot of problem recent. We can talk about number one, the botulism. They have a lot of people sick. Some people die by the cellar food because actually not the temperature warming. That's most likely people put in the plastic bag. That's why the anaerobic bacteria grow in there. That's a problem. Then of course, if you don't use the cellar, the cleaning is very difficult for every year. That's another issue. Then of course, like Siberia, they need water. Human need water. So that means the ice cellar in the Yakutia has to be usually very good shape because they need water. So then this is one of the interesting fermented weights. All of the Arctic, you can see all the walrus meat, ignac, or depend on the place, but they do very much the same way. But the ignac don't need the permafrost. They put, for example, iglulik for the Eastern Canada, they just bury in the beach. Then some places just put in the, Russia put in the Conex. So that's, you can make it. And this is how temperature is, the cellar temperature versus what we need. We feel like cellar need below 0. It is not true. Then if more accurately, well barbara like Mactac is a freezing point of minus 1.5. So that means that if you want to put the Mactac freeze, you have to be colder than minus 1.5. But most of the warmer permafrost area, people put the food in the active layer. That's just purpose for aging. The 3 months aging is a good taste for the meat, then eat. Then if they're above warmer than that, they can do the fermentation like ignac. So then new recent one, we put the cellar in the combined the Kaktovik for the thermosiphon, but we don't know. This is more likely the Siberian with the open lid, also the good way. So I think this is the last, kind of important. I want to talk a little bit time. So this graph is x-axis is a mean annual cellar temperature. The y-axis is the maximum cellar temperature. You can see the temperature. What's important for temperature? What's important is you can see the self-preserved temperature, like minus 18 degrees C, like 0 degree Fahrenheit. That food is safe all the time. No bacteria activities. None of the cellar reach to that requirement, right? I mean, if you have a home electric freezer, in general, much better. They never bacteria activate, only freezer burn. Then another thing is next important is a lot of brine in the permafrost. Then, for example, the Utokiyabik, the barrel freezing point is about minus 9.5. So that means if warmer than that, soil is not hard enough. They have a looks like thawed ground. So that most of the barrel that problem. So then another thing is the Babura freezing point. The another one is aging temperature. Then we look at all the temperature. You can see the triangle mark. That's North Slope, Alaskan cellar is the satisfying for the whale meat keep the frozen. Then cross is ice cellar in the Yakutia. They don't really care temperature because the ice doesn't spoil. If ice melts, then we lost the water. That's it. So that means that even they are put in the non-permafrost area too. Then if you don't have a abundant for the Bering Strait, like a circle, you can see the Bering Strait site is, if you take care good, you can use still cellar for the most likely aging purpose. But if you don't do this, you cellar temperature way above 5 degrees C for the summertime, they can use anything. So that's we can see the very much the solution. So sorry that time is over a lot, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Kenji. And we're gonna have time for questions at the end. So I'm gonna ask you to hold your questions for now. I know I have a couple of them. And let me see if Aqef, if you could unmute, and Meredith, if you could screen share slides again. I have some photos that Aqef sent, and he's calling on the phone, so he won't be able to see the slides, I don't think. But Aqef, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for calling in. I know you were working. There are, just so you know, there's about 30 people on Zoom, all interested in the topic. And the first slide I have up is just a map of where you are in Savoonga. So for folks watching who aren't familiar with where St. Lawrence Island is, if you look just up and to the right, you can see Nome, which many of you might know where that location is. And then Aqef, I'm just gonna share your photos. Meredith, if you could just advance to the next slide. And the first photos I'm showing are just the above ground entrances of the cellars. And then I have the photos of the inside. Meredith, if you could go to the next slide. And there's a few like this, but I will just let you talk about what you're seeing with Cellars in Savoonga.
Yeah, this year is going to be our first year not using our ice cellars due to water damage, and this winter foxes made holes on all of our ice cellars, and they're not going to be used. Last year, 2023, was our last year of using the 3 good chillers the people had. And it's going to be pretty hard celebrating birthdays now due to not having our yearly spring food that we put in our cellars now.
So when we're looking
Now
at the
we got it.
pictures, they're like all packed all the way full of snow. Is that because it flooded and refroze? Or can you explain what the foxes digging into them did? Did that let water in?
They made holes on where the ground level is, and melt water just started going into the cellars. If they were to made hole about a foot higher from the ground, we would have been able to save the ice cellars, but since they made the holes close to the ground, the melt water just overflowed over that hole the foxes made. And nobody knew about it until it was time to check on our food. And once we dug out our ice cellars, we seen the damage that was done. Our food spoiled, and fox ate just about half of the food we packed away last year, and now this year going to be our first year not having the food we ate from the previous year now, and it don't feel right.
Can you talk about what you think the community of Savoonga needs to rebuild or replace or repair the cellars?
We're going to need to get new material to make new ones. These ones we have are no good now, and we're gonna have to make new ones from scratch. And the lumber we get is pretty expensive, and only way to get new ice cellars if everybody chips in together, or one of the organizations help us out on writing grants to make one big community cellar. That way we'd be able to maintain one instead of multiple of them. That way more people would go check on that one instead of different families having their own. If we were to make a big community cellar, we'd just put notes or put markings on certain food, say that one's for that family and that other pile's for that family, and that way multiple families would go check on that ice cellar, and if one family forgets, the next family, that whoever has food in that cellar, that those families would be able to go check on it and keep foxes away and whatnot. And I don't know. It's pretty hard to explain, since this year is our first year not gonna use our ice cellars, and we've been using them for hundreds of years. Some of the ice cellars, the pictures I sent, some of those cellars were well over 100 years old, and 2024 did it.
Thank you so much for sharing about that. And let me just share, Odge, I don't think could make it. I'll just double check if he's on the phone. Please speak up, but he had to work. But he did share a photo and a report last year. Meredith, if you could go to the next slide. So Odge is in Diomede, which is quite a bit further north in St. Lawrence Island, just kind of due west of Wales. The next slide, please, Meredith. He had a report for Sea Ice for Walrus Outlook last year, and I'll just read it out loud for those on the phone. On Friday, June 23rd, 2023, my meat hole in Diomede no longer has permafrost to ferment walrus meats. The pit is down 15 feet. I was really looking forward to preparing our delicious fermented foods. And there's a link there to his post. All the Sea Ice for Walrus Outlook posts are archived on the webpage. And he shares a picture on the left. It's a little bit hard to see, but it looks like the cellar in Diomede, as you might expect, is a little bit rockier. But he wasn't able to join. But I did get a couple of other comments from people on the Sea Ice for Walrus Outlook Facebook page. Meredith, if you could go to the next slide. So one person in Nome made a suggestion that solar and wind generation could help with keeping Suglox cold, and another person in Ukiagvik said one thing to help prevent flooding is the repair and replacement of the frame of the entrance to the cellar shaft to something impenetrable by water. The new barrier should extend below the level of the ground that thaws during the summer. Mine gets water that flows just above the permafrost and seeps in through the cracks in the old wood. It was built in the 70s. Okay, and then next slide, please. There is, I'm going to drop a link in the chat, and I don't know if Maury Lemon or Lars Nelson were able to join today. I emailed with them a bit and they were hoping to, but they started a program with the Inupiat community of the Arctic slope for technology, which is thermosiphons to keep cellars frozen and cold. And so the website that I've linked below was a program that people could apply to participate in. And I don't know if Maury or Lars, if either of you are on and have a moment to share about your work. Okay, it doesn't sound like they were able to join, but that's a potential resource. But I think what I'd like to do now, we don't have a whole lot of time left. I would just like to give people some time to ask questions and have discussion about potential solutions for places like Savoonga, and if technology is an approach, rebuilding cellars with a different approach would be best. So I will open it up for questions. And let's see, I think maybe we could stop the screen share and just, if people feel like turning on their video and unmuting, go for it. If you would be more comfortable putting questions in the chat, I can monitor that as well. Okay, Ellen. And Ellen, you had a really interesting comment about work you were doing in Point Hope. I'm happy you spoke up. Please tell us.
Yeah, so I work for EA Engineering, and we've been working with the city of Point Hope on a design to address several coastal resilience needs that they have near their this old town site where their civil locks are. And part of that design is to make a new pilot civil lock with some of the same technology that Lars and Maury are using for theirs, but also inspired by the Kaktovik ice cellar that Dr. Yoshikawa mentioned. And so we're currently funded under NIFWIF and CRF, but we haven't quite started this next phase yet. The goal is to have a complete design. So we have a 10% design right now. And so I was hoping to ask Dr. Yoshikawa, I have a lot of questions, very specific questions that I'd like to ask maybe separately because your work is so relevant to what we're doing. But if I could ask a question that would maybe be more interesting for the group at large, do you know if there are any inventories of civil locks in different communities or an inventory of communities that have historically used them and whether they are still functional?
Thank you for interest. Honestly, I don't have a nice inventory or something. We try to publish the case by case, then I not really have everything. So that's hard to tell. I'm sorry about this. Then I think, this is not your question, but maybe you are interested about Kaktovik Cellar, right? Then I know that most of the Alaskan Native interesting about this. Then they, of course, everybody wants to same one. Then I will tell you a little bit about this. I hate to say much negative side, but we should discuss a little bit more problem side, right? I will tell you a little bit. About little over 10 years ago, the oil company in Anchorage contact us to the design for the ice cellar, something using some siphon or something more state-of-the-art technology with a native way. Then also we try to communicate with the Kaktovik people. They want to have a Herschel Island type of cellar. Do you know, I mentioned about the Herschel Island. That's all days about exile, Russian exile invented that way. So they want to have that kind. So then end up to today's Kaktovik cellar is not like Herschel Island type. They are more like original native way to the vertical shaft, but the surround there put in the thermosiphon. Then two big problems today, maybe they don't want to hear about this, but I will point out. Number one is they end up to the very typical small cellar. So that means they have to share with the community. Then only the whale captain share, 3 whale community captain there, they have to share as it, but very difficult to share with the one who clean up, who do this. Again, I told you that spring cleaning is very important. They can do this, if somebody nobody responsible. That's the problem, I think, one thing. The another thing is thermosiphon. Thermosiphon makes only 1 or 2 degrees at most, can cold a little bit ground. That works only for the winter time. Summertime doesn't work. Cellar is important for summertime. So that means they end up to the, I don't show today, but if using thermosiphon cellar versus open the winter time late or ventilation system in Siberia, actually ventilation system is much colder inside the cellar. So that means the thermosiphon really is looking good, but reality, the traditional Siberian method much colder inside the cellar. That I see it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that your impression of the problems of the Cactobic cellar is basically the same one that I had from talking to Marnie, and it's not trivial because the social systems surrounding their maintenance is just as important as the actual technical functioning. But it's really interesting with your comment for the ventilation, how important that is.
Thank you.
Ellen, if you have a link to your work that you want to share in the chat, please feel free to drop it and I'll share resources with people. And then Corey, I saw that you have a question in the chat.
Oh yeah, can you hear me, Lisa?
Yep.
Oh yeah, good to hear your voice, Kenji and Aqef. This is Corey Erickson. I had a question about that has to do with cross-cultural knowledge exchange, and by cross-culture I mean between the different groups of Inuit and Siberian Yupik that you engage with. So it's a question for both of you. Kenji, I know you moved around pretty much around the whole Arctic and have a really good idea of the different types of technology and the different kind of smaller eco-regions of the Arctic. And I remember 7 years ago when you came up to Barrow for our science fair and you presented about the different types of sigloaks. A lot of the elders in the audience were pretty much, their jaws were dropped at the different types of, for instance, the thermosiphons, the ventilation, and some of the different types of sigloaks. Being that we're having a lot changing environments, have you seen different groups of Inuit or Yupik take in other designs from other parts of the Arctic in your work, or has there been a resistance? I know that a lot of our cultures really like to stick to the way we've kind of done it, the way our elders have maybe done it and the way that they know how it works. But as far as incorporating other types of sigloaks, have you seen any other kind of knowledge exchange or other groups use different types that are made by other groups? And then that question would be extended to Aqef as well, as to see if he has thought about looking at these different types of sigloaks with the community to potentially be utilized.
Thank you. Very nice to see you. Long time. I'm very glad to see your face. Yeah. Maybe I should put the face on. Yeah. So I think your question there. Yeah, I think one thing that I feel like, of course, how much community really wants a cellar. That's, I think, very related this. Then especially after the electrical freezer developed, and most of the small houses maybe not really necessary. Then when I visiting the community in Arctic, most of the time they don't use anymore. That's very typically I see today. Then, but very active is in the Yakutia because they need water. So then another thing is the no slope, like you live, the Sigurac, that's because still permafrost is a good shape. So then maybe most changing is somewhere in the Bering Strait communities, very much south end of the permafrost. But again, they are originally using for the fermentation or aging, not for the frozen. So that's, but again, yeah, I think that very much for the Inupiat community, maybe you need a whale team, whale captains, also young people working, cleaning, spring cleanup. Then maybe the Central Island UPIC need for the clan system, for the family base, and family need a lot of strong power for the young people clean up the cellar. So that kind of stuff is really difficult, I see today, some reason. Then instead that they just using other way around. That's I saw. So that meaning your question is exchanging for the technology or knowledge is not that much crossing about the culture, I feel like. But definitely you see even today, we did about Kaktovik Cellar to oil company Mede. That's impact a lot for all the villages. They want the same one. That's I hear many times. But still, again, biggest problem is how to using for the share the cellar. That's the things. Yeah. Yeah, then I think, do you see the next slide? Yeah, this is the biggest I want to point out, but I didn't time today. But you can see that this project was, the main things. Community cellar is not customary on Alaskan North Slope, but actually not just Alaskan North Slope. All of the Arctic community doesn't never share the cellar, or except Soviet time colforts and so forth. So that means I'm not sure, but they can really share with Cellar. That's I feel a big question. They even the Soviet time colforts so forth, they have only for cleaning person in the Cellar they hire to that. I don't think in today's world they can do like that kinds. That's my feeling. Thank you.
And Aqef, did you have something to add? I thought I heard you unmute a second ago.
Yeah, I wonder what material would be best to keep water out from the ice cellars. I wonder if anybody tried to repair old cellars that were quit being used due to flooding. Wonder if there's some kind of membrane we could lay inside the old cellars to reuse them. That way we wouldn't have to dig out one for a new one. That would save time, and before all the ice melts and goes away, that way we could use them, start using them again.
Yeah, Lisa, maybe I'll connect Aqef with Kuliak, who wrote that comment about how he sealed his SIWO Observer barrel, who made that comment on Facebook. But I'll follow up with the email there, and I'll shoot you a text, Aqef.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, sounds good.
And thanks to everyone who's dropping links in the chat. All really helpful. And Meredith, I want to check in with you because I know we are a few minutes over and may need to wrap up.
Yep. Yeah, I'm happy to stay on if others have questions. It's up to you. And also people can feel free to hop off because I know we are over, so there's no pressure to stay.
Okay. And I'm going to just put my email address in the chat. It'll also be on the slides when they're shared, but if anyone has more thoughts or just wants to connect, happy to chat more about this. Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a co-lead for the technology team, and I just want to make an observation that uh, part of the reason why people will tend to use the same type of cellar is because, you know, they have some experience with it. And then the idea of putting in modern materials to shore up old cellars, well, I think, you know, that would be kind of a risk. You'd want to test it out. And maybe, you know, I was thinking spray foam, for example, we use up in our attic to keep the, you know, to insulate it. And it's also got water retention properties. But, you know, that could be fairly unpredictable. It could have exactly the opposite effect of what you want. So that's why, you know, just like to point out, like, this is very much a trial and error process. It's not like we're building a machine and, you know, from theory and trying to bring in technology to make it work. That, you know, that makes this a very interesting technology topic. It's kind of a good paradigm for us to think about technology in the Arctic.
And circling back to Corey's comment about foods tasting different if they were in a modern freezer versus in a cellar, it really makes a difference.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
I mean, that's okay.
Do we have any last questions or comments? And thank you, Brian. You are like the chat resource rock star right now. I would invite you to jump in if you want. Oh, Aqef, go ahead.
Has anybody ever try making a shack over one of the ice chillers to build the sun from it?
I don't think you couldn't see Kenji's slides, but some of the slides he showed, there were things like that. Maybe he could talk about that.
Yeah, I've been thinking about making a pretty big shack over one of the ice chillers to see if that'll make a big difference. But I'll need to make that roof of the shack maybe 4 or 5 times bigger than the ice chiller. So that'd be at least good 10, 15 feet circle around the ice chiller.
I know they do that on the North Slope. Okay. Especially for the ones that are
Oh yeah.
vulnerable to just to keep another layer of cold air on the surface of the ground frozen, as well as potentially keeping the foxes away.
Yeah, nobody ever tried that here before, and I've been thinking about trying it to see if that'll give one of the ice cellars another few years of good use. I'll try anything to keep using our ice cellars out here. That way we'd have food throughout the summer and winter months. Plus, one New York steak is like $91 here in Savoonga. Some of them are well over $140 for a small 4 or 5 pound steak, and that costs too much. So most people end up buying expensive steaks. They'll buy more ammo and go hunting for for $4 or $5 food, one shot, one kill, that would be enough to feed few families for at least a couple weeks.
Thank you. Lauren with the Environmental Protection Agency is sharing some relevant grant information in the chat, and I will get that to you, Aqef, and we can talk about that more. That was one thing that you mentioned. Just getting lumber out there to rebuild things is not trivial. It's really expensive. So thank you, Lauren, for sharing all this.
Yeah, I'm going to pop my email into the chat too, and anyone can feel free to outreach to me. But I just wanted to make sure I was thinking about this, that I was, remembering from a long ago funding opportunity, that I was like, I think there's a specific piece in there about climate adaptation. So I double checked, and it is available, and it's this grant process has a really great technical assistance opportunity with it. And for track one, which is this falls under, it's $10 to $20 million of grant funding that's out there available. So I just want to make sure that that's available and obvious to folks. And if you want more questions, or if you have questions and need more information, please talk to me. We are happy to help and get this going. So thanks.
One more thing, one example is one sheet of 1/4-inch plywood costs $147 today. Price check some of the lumber here at store, and the store reselling the lumber 4 times what they paid for it. So the store is making what, 300% profit, or a little more than 300% profit due to freight costs, I guess. Need some kind of grant, get new lumber and whatnot. It all depends on how big the ice cellar is going to be, though, and who knows what that month will come up to. Unless different families want all in or write their own grants. But I'll ask around. I'll ask some of the elders if making one big community cellar would be good, or do the families prefer that they make their own. But I'll find out more. That's the only problem we have. Everything's prices. Everything is pretty expensive out here. Gallon heating fuel is about $7. Same with the gas, just about $7. And some families struggling all winter due to the fuel prices and the food prices. And this year, last year and this year, the utility bills jumped up in prices. Most hunters out there are starting to hop on other captains and chipping in gas like that, making 2 boats into one. That way, one boat could go out for 2-3 families at the same time, instead of 3 different boats going. Some people that used to go out on a daily basis, now they're starting to go out hunting once a week. Sometimes well over a week, nobody will go. We're managing. This year it looks like everybody's gonna hang dry meat more than previous years, just to have something to eat later. This year's gonna be our first year not having any fermented food. Only fermented food we're gonna be having this year is baby walrus. Yeah, putting up our baby walrus and ferment them like that. That's the fermented food some families are gonna be able to enjoy this year.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And again, thanks for all the resources in the chat. So I will compile, we'll have a recording shared, and we'll have these resources compiled and available. And then Aqef, I'll make sure I connect you with the grant opportunity shared by Lauren, and maybe I'll see if we can get COERIC involved too. I don't know. I almost wonder about like some years when there's not enough like walrus harvested, there can be a food security disaster declaration to get extra resources for communities. And it almost feels like a complete failure of all sellers in one community is a disaster. So I'm not sure if there are any resources there, but yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And thanks everyone for calling in, and great conversation.
Thank you,
Yep,
Aqef
you're welcome.
and Kenji.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the talking. It's very nice to meet everybody. Yeah, let me know additional some information through the email, through the Lisa maybe. I'm happy to talk with more further question. Thank you very much today.
Meredith, I had a slide with my contact info just as the last one. If you pop that up for a second, then it'll show up in the recording at least if people want to email me. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.